Good afternoon and welcome to the Nurse Corps Scholarship Program's Transition to Service webinar. Next slide, please. Today's agenda will include opening remarks from the Nurse Corps Scholarship Program's Division Director, Melissa Lewis. After opening remarks, we will launch into an overview of your transition to service goals, steps to success, and key details related to site eligibility as you begin your employment search. Next, we will share various requirements for the in-service phase of your Nurse Corps scholarship journey. Lastly, we will have demonstration of HRSA's helpful employment search tool and how to look up HRSA scores by address. Next slide, please. So we are here to help. We hope that many of your questions will be answered by the content of our presentation. For any questions not addressed by the presentation, we encourage you to ask them at the appropriate time. To create structure around question asking, we request that you please abide by the following format. Save questions until the end of each section, and it will be clear for you that we are at the end of a section as we will have a question slide that stops to ask for any questions. When we get to the question slide, you can either raise your hand to be able to come off mute and ask the question aloud, or if you feel more comfortable, you can certainly place questions in the chat. Both the raise your hand and chat features are found at the bottom of your screen. Save all questions not directly related to the content of each section until the open Q&A at the end of the webinar. And lastly, please remain on mute until called on by the presenter. I would now like to introduce the Division Director who oversees the Nurse Corps Scholarship Program, Melissa Lewis. Next slide and welcome, Melissa.
Thank you, Emily, and good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here with you this afternoon to share the opening remarks for the Transition to Service webinar. As Emily mentioned, my name is Melissa Lewis, and I serve as the Director for the Division of Health Careers and Financial Support, which houses the Nurse Corps Scholarship Program. For those of you who recently graduated, I want to say congratulations on completing your nursing degree program. For those of you with upcoming graduations, you are almost there, and good luck with your final coursework. As a Nurse Corps scholar, you play an integral role in our mission to improve the health of underserved and vulnerable populations. Thank you for being here. I will now turn things back over to Emily Agarwal, who leads the monitoring and transition team for the Nurse Corps Scholarship Program. Emily?
Melissa,
Emily, I believe you're on mute.
So sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Melissa, and good afternoon, everyone. I am Emily Carlisle Agrawal, a program analyst with the Nurse Corps Scholarship Branch, and I second Melissa's congratulations to you all. Graduation season is definitely an exciting time. Once you have graduated, your overall goals with the scholarship program are to obtain a nursing license and start your Nurse Corps service within 9 months. So what are the steps to success? Firstly, you'll want to study and pass the corresponding exam for your discipline. For example, NCLEX for RNs. You must take your licensing exam within 9 months of graduation. Meanwhile, you can be seeking open opportunities at active eligible critical shortage facilities with the appropriate health professional shortage area score. To help you in your search, Nurse Corps Scholarship Program has transition to service web pages to explore, and Monica will place a link to those web pages in the chat. In addition, you are strongly encouraged to create a personalized profile on the Health Workforce Connector, HRSA's employment search tool. This profile will help you connect with sites and open opportunities. I will provide a connector demonstration at the end of the presentation. Lastly, Shortly before graduation, you will be assigned an employment assistance analyst to assist you with your job search. Throughout your job search, keep your analyst informed of all scheduled interviews to be certain that you are interviewing at eligible critical shortage facilities. Next slide, please. Your Nurse Corps job search is like any other search for employment in that you are responsible for finding a position at an eligible Nurse Corps site, and your employment support analyst will be here to help along the way. When completing your Nurse Corps service commitment, you are an employee of the site and paid just like any other employee. Next slide. As you begin your job search, you need to know what makes a site eligible for Nurse Corps service. There are 3 eligibility criteria. 1, the job must be at a qualifying critical shortage facility site type. 2, the site must have a qualifying health professional shortage area score. And 3, the site must have a willing site point of contact. Next slide. The first eligibility criterion is site type. Here you see a list of eligible critical shortage facility types. You'll see that there are many primary care and hospital settings that are eligible for you. I'll give you a moment to read through the many options. As you can see, there are a wide variety of facility types to choose from when pursuing employment opportunities. The complete list, along with site type definitions, is in the Nurse Corps Scholarship Program's application and program guidance. Next slide. This is a short list of ineligible facility site types and employment statuses. These include clinics in prisons, correctional facilities, as well as nurse staffing and travel agencies. Nurses will not receive credit if you are a pro rata or on an as-needed basis at a staffing agency or other facility. Next slide. The second eligibility criterion is the HRSA requirement. Now you may be wondering, what exactly is a HRSA? HRSA stands for Health Professional Shortage Area. There are 3 separate designations for health professional shortage areas. Nurse Corps only uses 2, primary care and mental health. Nurse Corps does not use the dental health HRSA. A health professional shortage area score is used to determine priority for assignment of healthcare professionals to shortage areas. Scores range from 0 to 25 for primary care and mental health, and the higher the score, the greater the shortage of health professionals for that specific area. You're required to serve at a site with a mental health or primary care HRSA score of 14 or higher. As a Nurse Corps scholar, your commitment to service in an underserved area helps improve health outcomes and achieve health equity across our nation. The HRSA score ensures you are serving a community in need. From here on out in the presentation, we will refer to health professional shortage area scores as HRSAs. Next slide. The third and final eligibility criterion is a willing site point of contact. Your site of interest must have an active point of contact, or POC, in MyBHW. The POC can be a human resources staff person or nursing supervisor. In other words, anyone authorized by the site to verify your employment. After creating an account in MyBHW, the POC must be willing to verify employment using their MyBHW account. If your site of interest is an eligible site type and has a qualifying HRSA score, but does not have an active POC in MyBHW, it is your responsibility to find a willing point of contact. Your employment support analyst will confirm site eligibility once these criteria are met. Next slide. All right, it is question time, ladies and gentlemen. So Tiffany, if you will please launch the first poll. The question is, what type of HRSA designation and score requirement does an eligible critical shortage facility need to have for you to be able to accept employment? All right, I see about. All right, and if you will go to the next slide and share results. And next slide, please. All right, so only about 30% of you put D. The vast majority of you put C. So you're in luck. In fact, it does not have to be that it's both. It's either or. So either a mental health HRSA score of 14 or a primary care HRSA score of 14. So keep that in mind as you are searching for eligible sites. It's either or. It does not have to be both. All right, next slide, please. So now we're going to take our first pause and address any questions related to the content that we just covered. You can either raise your hand and Monica will call on individuals to come off mute and ask their question, or if you prefer to type your question into the chat box, you can certainly do that. And please only ask questions related to the content we just covered in terms of the general overview, aspects of the employment search, and site eligibility criteria.
Great. I see a hand by the last name of Pete. Come off mute and ask your question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I am a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner student, and I just want to know if the facility, if they have the primary care score of 14 or the mental health, like, does it apply for both? Like, I mean, I'm sorry, does it have for my specialty, does it have to apply just for mental health, or can it apply for primary care, if you understand what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah, that's a great question, Shakara. So as a soon to be mental health nurse practitioner, psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, it still applies to you that it's either or. So if you find a site and it has an eligible primary care HRSA score 14 or higher, then that will work for you, even though your specialty is psychiatric mental health.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We have a few questions in the chat. Bree is asking, what about working part-time at a site?
Yes, Bree. We will actually cover the specifics of that a little bit later in the presentation, but the short answer is yes, you are allowed to work part-time.
And the next question from Alvin is, will there be a link to get requirements for making a facility at a site? And we will get to that. Emily, did you want to add?
Yeah, if you already know that you have a facility where you've identified the site point of contact and you've looked up to make sure they have the correct HRSA score and you verified that with your employment support analyst, you can ask your employment support analyst for a form called a critical shortage facility verification form, and that is the form that you have to have filled out to make that happen.
And we have one last question in the chat from a participant by the last name of Ty. I wanted to ask, can you do a residency, and can you elaborate on how? Are there any roles, etc.?
Yes. So Carmel, we encourage our scholars to, further their education with residencies. And there is a post-graduation training process. So we will get to that a little later in the presentation.
And we have one last question from Miss Pete. You can take yourself off the mute.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had saw the question about residency. I mean, if you're going to elaborate on it more, then I guess I'll just wait on that question. Or do you want me to ask it now?
If it's a residency specific question, wait until we get to the question section after we go over those slides.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Emily, that looks like all the questions for now.
Thanks, Monica. Next slide, please. Thank you. All right, so shortly before graduation, you will receive a message through My BHW from your assigned employment assistance analyst. Some of you may have already been assigned an analyst and others will be contacted soon. Here's a screenshot of the My BHW's landing page's My Activities section. The inquiry that you're going to want to use to correspond directly with your employment support analyst is the inquiry hyperlink text in the open portion of your My Activities section, and you want to select that to communicate directly with your employment support analyst. And it's important to note that you must reply to that original open inquiry in order for your analyst to see your question in a timely fashion. Next slide, please. So here's another screenshot from My BHW. After you select the Employment Assistance Inquiry hyperlink, you'll scroll to the bottom of that communication trail. You'll see a message that says, have additional supporting documents, questions, comments, or corrections for this request? Select the Contact Us hyperlink text to send a direct message to your Employment Assistance Analyst. And so by using that method, you will be able to receive a timely response from your employment support analyst versus if you select the Ask a Question button, your message will get to your employment support analyst, but it will not get there directly. And so it just will take longer to receive a response. Next slide, please. Now I am turning the presentation over to my colleague, Monica Tia Bullock. Monica?
Sorry, I had to get off mute. Thank you, Emily. As Emily mentioned, my name is Monica Tia Bullock, and I am part of the Nurse Corps Scholarship Monitoring and Transition Team. As you are working with your employment support analysts, please keep them informed of the following. When you take your discipline-specific exam, for example, NCLEX for RNs. Secondly, your top 3 states in which you like to perform your Nurse Corps service. Please note that you may need to relocate to find employment. For instance, states like New Jersey have limited eligible sites, and so scholars located in New Jersey might need to relocate or be open to commuting. We also need any delays in passing your professional examinations, delays in becoming fully licensed, sites of interest. Please make sure to confirm with your analyst the eligibility of sites at which you are interviewing, and also any upcoming interviews and job offers. Next slide. Now we'll discuss the required employment documents. After you obtain your license and offer of employment, you must upload these documents into My BHW. For RN or APRN license, it must include your name, license number, issuance and expiration dates, and be from the state in which you have a job offer. The second required document is a confirmation of employment offer form. Emily will place a link to the form in the chat. The form must show a start date within 9 months of graduation, the discipline and specialty for which you were awarded, that you are working at least 80% of your time providing direct patient care, and that you are working at a minimum of 16 plus hours per week. Next slide. This slide contains helpful screenshots to show where you can upload these required documents. To upload documents, go to your My BHW homepage. You will then select Site Search, which is found under My Activities. The site search will be under the Open Activities list or the Completed Activities list, even if you haven't completed it. Most of the document types you see under Site Search are not required. For instance, there is no need to upload your NCLEX or board scores because your license proves you pass. The employment information release form, which is crossed out in the screenshot above, is no longer required. The only two documents you must upload are your license and your confirmation of employment offer form. Next slide, please. We hope everyone has success with taking their licensing exams. However, if you have not obtained a license within the 9 months post-graduation, we ask that you use Ask a Question to request a licensure suspension via My BHW prior to the 9-month employment deadline. Your licensure suspension request must include a failed exam result and proof of your registration to retake the exam. If you have not taken the exam within 9 months of graduation, you will not be granted a licensure suspension. Taking the exam in a timely manner is a key responsibility of all scholars. Next slide, please. We're going to stop here and take a quick poll. How much time do you have after graduation to obtain your RN, APRN license and start employment? All right, it looks like 100% of you answered the question. Next slide. And you were all correct. The answer is B, 9 months. Great job. So I'm going to pause here and take any questions related to the content we just covered. Please remember the content we just covered was working with your employment assistant analyst, required documents, or did not pass your exam. Emily, if you can browse and see who is asking questions.
Certainly. So we don't have anything in the chat at the moment, but feel free to add or raise your hand and you can come off mute and ask your question. So it looks like Tashana says, I have not heard back from my analyst, but I did hear that it takes a while. So Tashana, you should hear back in about 3 business days if you sent a question via the communication trail. If you did send your employment support analyst a question via the Ask a Question button, sometimes that has to get rerouted through a few people, so it might take a little bit longer. If that is the case, we can certainly jot down your name and make sure that we circle back to you. So Tashana, has it, I don't know what amount of time, but would you like for us to jot down your name and circle back to you? Okay, sounds good. We will do that. And then it looks like Han has their hand raised.
Yes. So I wanted to ask, because from past experiences, there is usually a delay from the communication between us and the analysts. And if there's a potential delay in the analyst's feedback, it is advisable for us to simultaneously submit our interview request to the analyst and to the company to avoid, sometimes the the job openings are time sensitive, and if you have a delay in the analyst response, the job opening may close. So that is my question.
Yeah, great question. And I think that there's a bit of a point of confusion that hopefully this will clarify. So you don't need to ask permission to accept the job offer because if you ask at the time that you're offered an interview, is this site eligible to your analyst, then you should know well in advance of being offered a job if it is an acceptable nurse core site. So we would strongly suggest that you, once you are offered an interview, that be the point in time at which you reach out to your employment support analyst to confirm site eligibility, so that then when you are offered that job, there doesn't have to be communication back and forth to verify eligibility at that point in time, because you're absolutely right. Usually there's a pretty quick turnaround that they're asking for a response to a job offer.
Okay, just wanted to make sure so we could submit the job interview for an interview, and then later on when we have an offer, that's when the time we should contact our analysts to make sure that the site is eligible for service. If not, then we have to decline the offer from the company. If we proceed, it will not be counted. But if the job is counted and the analyst has agreed that the site is eligible, then we proceed with the interview.
Yes, that is correct. And when you send a message to your employment support analyst, you want to make sure to give them the full site name and physical address so that they can look that up to determine site eligibility at the time of interview.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then it looks like Elizabeth is asking, I still don't have the ask a question button under my activities. When should I expect it? So the ask a question button actually shouldn't be under the my activity section. The ask a question button should be in the left-hand navigation of your portal homepage. And that's different than selecting the open inquiry under the my activities. So if you go under the my activities section and you're going to have lots of closed inquiries, but there should be one open inquiry. And if you open it up and read through it, it should be information from an employment support analyst. Do you see that, Elizabeth?
Hi, no. You said it's
Okay.
on the left-hand side?
Well, the ask a question button is on the left-hand side, but that's if you are trying to message your in-school analyst at this point in time. If you're trying to message your employment support analyst, you will want to go to the My Activities section.
Right.
And you're going to see both open and closed activities. And so there should be an open activity that says inquiry, and you would click on that hyperlink. Do you have an open activity that says inquiry?
No, the only thing I have here is the postgraduate training request.
Okay. Elizabeth, what is your last name?
A as in apple, D as in dog, E as in elephant, J as in jug, U as in umbrella, M as in Mary, O as in orange.
Okay, thank you. So Shivani, I know, is capturing names, and we will make sure to look into the issue there. So apologize about that, but thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thanks for your help.
And then Bree, sounds like you were saying same for me as well in terms of a delayed response. Bree, will you please just type in the chat what your whole name is so that we can be able to look at that after the call. Thank you, Bree. And then Destiny, towards the end of the presentation, I believe Tiffany is going to place a copy of the slides in the chat, and then we will send out a communication with a recording of today's webinar in a few days. And then you were also asking, where can we are we able to find a job at a site that may not be listed within the search tool? So yes, the answer to that is it has to be at an eligible site, and that's why we went over those 3 criteria for what makes a site eligible. So if it's not in the connector, it needs to be at a site that meets those 3 eligibility criteria. And then lastly, Han is asking, will that open activity with the employment analyst stay open for the duration of our employment? Good question. It will not. Once you have all of the administrative paperwork completed so that your status turns from placement pending to in service, you will then have a third analyst who will be supporting you. So you started with your in-school analyst, then you are now, having your employment support analyst helping you. And when you are completing your service commitment, you will have a third in-service analyst here to support you.
Are those all the questions? We can do next slide. RNs and APRNs are encouraged to seek additional training prior to beginning their nurse corps service. Research shows postgraduate training residencies improve nurses' clinical and communication skills. It builds confidence in new nurses and increases retention rates. RNs and APRNs are encouraged to request a deferment or postponement of their service obligation to complete a postgraduate training approved by Nurse Corps. With minor exceptions, effective July 1, 2025, APRNs can defer service when completing an accredited residency. Registered nurses may receive service credit if the residency is a condition of employment at an eligible Nurse Corps service site. To be eligible, a postgraduate training program must be an accredited program, consistent with the discipline and specialty for which awarded, starts no later than 6 months after graduation, and does not exceed 18 months in length. Nurse Corps service must start within 3 months of training completion. Next slide, please. If you are interested in completing a postgraduate training, you will need to use the links found on this slide to determine if the residency of interest is accredited by either the Commission on Collegiate Nursing Education or the American Nurses Credentialing Center. We also permit postgraduate trainings at sites that were awarded funds by the HRSA Advanced Nursing Education, which is Nurse Practitioner Residency Fellowship Programs. Emily is going to put in the chat those residency training links. Next slide, please. To fulfill your service obligation, you have the option to work full-time. That's at least 32 hours per week, or part-time, which is defined as between 16 and 31 hours per week. These flexibilities are great for scholars who need the option to fulfill their service commitment on a part-time basis due to other responsibilities. As a participant, you must also spend at least 80% of your work time providing direct patient care to maintain compliance in the program. Next slide, please. You all are very familiar at this point with the process of completing ISVs while in school. Guess what? The fun doesn't stop once you graduate. Now, ISV no longer refers to in-school verification, but rather in-service verification. After you begin your employment at your site, you will be required to complete in-service verifications, or ISVs, every 6 months. The in-service verification tracks your compliance with the Nurse Corps service requirements. In-service verifications confirm your work attendance and the amount of time you missed during the verification period. Next slide, please. Approved leave. The question that we get the most, how much time am I allowed to take off from work? You are required to serve a minimum of 45 weeks per service year. This means you are allowed to be on leave for no more than 7 weeks per service year, regardless of how many days per week served. Next slide, please. Now we are going to pause and address any questions over the content that I just covered. The content we just covered was postgraduate trainings, service hour requirements, in-service verification forms, and approved leave. I see Shakira has her hand raised.
Yes, ma'am. So with the residency, now I think I saw on the portal that you have to put in a deferment for the residency, but they want the residency deferment request, should I say, to be submitted May 1st, if I'm not mistaken. But the thing is like a lot of the residencies that I've been seeing and even interviewing for, they're still like in the interview process. So it's like, I don't know, where I stand, if I get accepted and so forth. So what can I do in this situation if I don't get a response, or should I say an answer from them just yet?
Sure, that's a great question. So what you can do is just not fill out the form right now until such a time as you hear back from them. I know it says May 1st.
Okay.
That you can ignore that date on there. And if you actually prefer to just get it off your task dashboard, you can select no to the question and submit it. And then at such a time as you decide, okay, I've received this offer, I know it meets the requirements, I want to submit the request for deferment, you can simply send a portal message asking for the post-graduation training request to be manually sent to you, and we can reopen it at that time.
Okay. And one more question. So with the accreditation, so it can't be, I guess, with any company that may not be accredited with you guys, correct?
So it's in terms of the accreditation, that is a new policy. And so, there can potentially be some exceptions for people who are graduating shortly, since we are just rolling out that policy.
Yeah.
But in general, it needs to be through one of the two accrediting bodies. So not HRSA, but it's the commission.
And the
Yeah.
CCNE. Yeah, because
Yep.
I got a list from like it was a consortium and they had like different types of, specialties, and they had a list of a bunch of different residencies. And so I was like, oh, okay. I didn't realize that the residencies need to be accredited. But since you said it's something new, then I guess I don't want to say be grandfathered in, so to speak. I mean, for lack of better words, but maybe, I don't know. But I'll still look for accredited residencies in the meantime as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and it also just depends on your graduation date too. We will.
Yeah, I graduate next month.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're kind of in the in-between period. Obviously, everyone in a handful of months from now will be definitely required to abide by the new policy. But for the people who are in that in-between stage, there will be some flexibilities offered.
Okay.
So we would encourage you to look at those lists of accredited ones, but keep moving forward with the ones in which you're interested as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and then Madeline, I think you have your hand raised as well.
Hey, I do. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I just had a clarification for the residency because I had talked to my analyst about this previously. And she said that if it's an RN residency program that doesn't have an end date, to treat it like a normal like employment like service verification. But she said like if it's a residency and then it ends at like a year and then you have to find a job, that counts as like the postgraduate training. Does that make sense?
It does. Yes. And I
Okay.
think, yeah, and I think that kind of speaks to Shauna's question in the chat. So for registered nurses, oftentimes the job title will be, you know, RN resident, but it's really truly, if you read the job offer letter, an offer of full-time employment, where there's a, you know, a bit of onboarding and what have you, and certain curriculum that they have you do while being employed full-time for that first year. And so um, by and large, registered nurses will do receive offer letters that are for just a regular offer of employment, even if they have the word resident in the title. And so for those, we will treat them as regular job offers, and then you will submit the paperwork to start your service credit. For residencies that have that clear end date, that's where you would then submit the post-graduation training request to request a deferment of your service.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question completely. I appreciate the clarification.
You're welcome. And then I see Carmel asked a question about whether your stipend continues while you're working. That's a good question, Carmel. So your stipend actually will not. The stipend ends on the day of your last date of class, whatever month that is in, that's the last month in which you will receive a stipend payment. And then Bree, you have your hand up?
Hi, yes. I was just wondering what are the requirements of working part-time, and also how long does the contract get extended if you work part-time?
Good question. So we consider full-time as 32 hours per week or more. So that means that, say you're working part-time at 16 hours per week, 16 is exactly half of 32. That means that your length of service in terms of like years is going to exactly double. Say, however, that you're working 20 hours a week, then we would do a calculation where it's 20 divided by the 32 to figure out, you know, what percentage of full time that is that you're working, and then extend your service obligation from there so that it's a full-time equivalent for the number of part-time hours that you're working. So that ultimately, whether you were working full-time or part-time, you end up working the same number of hours, just the length of the service is longer if, you know, if it's part-time, because it will take you longer to complete those service hours.
Okay, I understand. And what are the requirements for being part-time?
So in terms of the difference between part-time and full-time, the only requirement for part-time is that it has to be minimally 16 hours per week, and then all the rest of the service requirements are the same in terms of it having to be in the discipline and specialty, 80% of your work hours needing to be clinically focused, etc.
Okay, well, I mean, like, what are the because can I just say that I want to be part-time instead of full-time? Is there a certain criteria, I mean, to be eligible for part-time?
There is not certain eligibility criteria. No, I mean, obviously you just have to find a job that permits that at an eligible nurse course site. But there are no other factors involved.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And then I see Carmel asked, can you work 16 hours a week at one facility and 32 at another at the same time, and do both facilities need to be affiliated with HRSA? Good question. So, you know, say that your dream job is at this 32-hour a week facility, but it's not a Nurse Corps eligible site, but you don't want to lose it. You can then work 16 hours at a Nurse Corps eligible site. You know, there's no exclusions from Nurse Corps' perspective of you working two jobs. Obviously, we want for you to do what's best for your own well-being. But ultimately, it's up to you to decide where and how much you work. With that said, for Nurse Corps service completion, if you are going to work at more than one site, they have to be under the same employer. So you cannot work at two sites from two different employers and have both of those count towards your service commitment. All right, and then I think we have one other hand raised. Montenrayo, and I apologize if I butchered your name.
You're okay. Yeah, you had it right. I was just wondering for the postgraduate training, like someone said before, I'm not exactly sure where I stand with that. But if I do end up getting one, is there like any additional documentation I need to submit for it?
Great question. So you will need to submit detailed documentation outlining like the program details, and that could be you know, informational pamphlets that they gave you. It could be screenshots from, you know, a detailed website. And then you'll have to provide, of course, your acceptance letter that has the, you know, program director's name, their contact information, the start and the end dates, your job title, the name and physical address of the site. I don't think I'm forgetting anything, but certainly at the point in time in which you are, you know, ready to fill out that post-graduation training request, you can ask that question again, and we will make sure to send all of that to you in writing as well.
Okay, thank you. And just to confirm, you said if the facility requires like all their new grads go through like a residency program, then it counts as just regular employment.
That's correct.
Awesome, thank you.
All right. We can move to the next slide. While we encourage retention of Nurse Corps scholars at the site where they begin employment, transfers are allowed. Transfer requests should be submitted before you leave your current site. So it's important that you keep the Nurse Corps abreast of your transfer plans. To request transfer, you will complete a change my service location details or hours request by selecting the purple icon on your My BHW homepage. Next slide, please. What is a suspension? A suspension is a temporary pause in your service obligation. There are 3 types of suspension requests. 1 is medical or personal hardship, 2 is parental leave, and 3 is called to active duty. If any of the situations that I just shared with you are applicable to you, you must request a suspension in advance through My BHW. Supporting documentation will be required for each request. Approved suspensions may extend your service obligation if your leave goes beyond 7 weeks per service year. Next slide, please. You have successfully completed your nursing degree and about to embark on a new season of life. We are excited for you to Sorry. I'm gonna start all over with this slide, excuse me. You have successfully completed your nursing degree and are about to embark on a new season of life. We are excited for you and committed to your success as you dedicate the next few years of your life to providing quality healthcare to communities in need. Our hope is that this slide will never pertain to anyone on this call, but it is important that we explain what happens if you are found in breach of contract. Default for the purpose of Nurse Corps is defined as a failure to begin or complete your service obligation as specified in your Nurse Corps Scholarship Program contract. If you are recommended for default, you will be required to pay back all the money paid to you or paid on your behalf, plus interest within 3 years. Next slide, please. Now we are going to pause and address any questions related to the content I just covered. So please ask questions related to site transfers, suspension requests, or breach of contract.
While we're waiting to see if any questions come in related to that, I do see one question that came in right at the end of our last section from Han. So yes, Han, if you are working exactly half of the 32 hours and you had a 3-year contract, that would mean you'd be needing to work 6 years. However, if you work somewhere between if you work somewhere from 17 to 31 hours, it's going to be more than 3 years, but less than 6. And it'll be a strict calculation. And Carmel is asking, will you be in breach if you work overtime? You will not be in breach of contract if you work overtime. However, you're not able to expedite the completion of your service commitment by working overtime. It's, whether you work 32 hours or 48 hours, full-time is full-time from the perspective of completing your service obligation. All right, and if there are no other questions, we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide.
Thank you, Emily. We know that this has been a lot of information to consume in a short amount of time. So to bring you back to the big picture, your goals: obtain a nursing license and start Nurse Corps service within 9 months of graduation. Steps to success include passing your exam, applying to positions at approved eligible critical shortage facilities with a mental health or primary care HRSA score of 14 or higher. Use the transition to service web pages. Create a profile on the Health Workforce Connector. Inform your analysts of scheduled interviews and job offers. Emily has just placed in the chat a few links that will be helpful to you. Now I'm going to turn the presentation back over to Emily for some demonstrations. Next.
Thanks, Monica. So we will now move into the demonstration portion of the webinar, and I will demonstrate a sample job search and site lookup in the Health Workforce Connector and explain how you can look up HRSA scores. So as you can see on the screen, this is the homepage of the Health Workforce Connector. It is a helpful tool that enables Nurse Corps participants to search and locate both healthcare sites and job opportunities. Let's begin a sample search for eligible healthcare sites. You would first navigate to the Health Workforce Connector at connector.hrsa.gov. As you scroll down the page, a link to create a personalized profile allows scholars to connect and communicate with sites of interest. At the top of the homepage, select Go to Advanced Search. On the side menu, there are two search fields where you can either input a keyword name or job title or a location. Let's say you're interested in working in the Mississippi Delta region, one of the most impoverished rural areas in our country with some of the poorest health outcomes. You know, one of the cities in the Delta region is Helena, Arkansas. So in the location field, you input Helena's zip code, 72342. When you enter the zip code, the page will update with ways to further refine your search. One way is by distance. We'll select a 50-mile radius. There are also many different site types to filter by, but let's say you're flexible in the type of facility you want to work at, so you keep this search field blank. A search filter you must use to narrow your search is the HRSA score field. Remember, you must work at a site with a mental health or primary care HRSA score of 14 or higher. You should conduct two separate searches by HRSA score. One for sites with a primary care score of 14 to 25, and a separate search for mental health scores of 14 to 25. Separate searches may yield more results. For this example, let's search for a site with a mental health HRSA score of 14 to 25. Then select the blue search button. In the search results, you see 4 opportunities and 42 sites in your search location. Let's select the gray Sites tab to see where you can work. As you scroll down, you spot a site of interest, the East Arkansas Family Health Center in Helena. To learn about the site, you select the site's blue hyperlink name to display its site page. At the top of the site page, you find the address, phone number, and website. You can use this blue Connect with Site button once you create your connector profile. As you scroll down, you find more details such as site points of contact. This site qualifies as a nurse core site because its HRSA score are 15 for primary care and 19 for mental health. In the top right-hand corner of this site page, you see there are 0 job opportunities posted in the connector, but the site is still eligible and they could be posting job opportunities elsewhere. To investigate further, you select the link to their website. So then let's look under the About Us to see if we can find where they're posting their jobs. And as you peruse the career opportunities, you see in Helena that there is a nurse practitioner opening at the Helena, Arkansas clinic. After applying to the position, if you are contacted for an interview, reach out to your employment support analyst to have them verify the site's eligibility for your nurse core service. We hope this sample search was helpful. As a nurse core scholar, your service in an underserved area helps improve health outcomes and achieve health equity across our nation. The connector is a powerful tool to discover nurse core sites in high needs areas throughout the country. Now, I'll demonstrate how to look up a HRSA by address. Let's begin a sample search. Say that you're interested in a rural site in the state of Maine because you've always wanted to work in a rural underserved setting and you're hoping to work with older adults. During your job search, you find that Presque Isle Rehab and Nursing Center is looking for registered nurses, but you don't know if the site is eligible. We'll navigate to the HRSA Find by Address site. The link is in the chat and is where you can find shortage areas by address. Use the search box on the page to enter the site address, 162 Academy Street. And the zip code is 04769. The city and state fields are not required when you search by zip code. Your search will produce HPSA scores for the Presque Isle Rehab and Nursing Center address. You can see by scrolling down on this page that it qualifies as a site where you can work based on its mental health HPSA score of 15. This address does not have a primary care HPSA score, but you only need one score, either mental health or primary care, to be 14 or higher for your nurse corps service. Now that you know the nursing home has an eligible HPSA score, you can apply for positions at this site. As a reminder, if you are contacted for a job interview, reach out to your employment support analyst to verify the site's eligibility. This concludes the demonstration portion of the webinar. So if we can go back to the slides, and as Shivani's getting us there, next slide, please. Thank you. We encourage you to visit our website to access the application and program guidance and transition to service web pages. We also ask that you keep your email address portion of your MyBHW account updated, which means changing it from your school email address to a personal email address, as the school addresses do deactivate after graduation. And you can connect with us on social media. We have Facebook, X, and LinkedIn Nurse Corps accounts, and HRSA has an Instagram account as well. We also have a Nurse Corps YouTube channel where we post videos and tutorials. Next slide, please. All right, so Monica is placing a link in the chat to a very brief 4-question survey. And before we open for questions, we would love it if you would take just 1 minute to provide your feedback to ensure that we are making this webinar helpful for future scholars. So we would be very grateful if you would take a couple minutes to do that. And as people are clicking on the link, if anyone wants to come off mute with any last questions that were not answered throughout the course of the presentation about your transition to service, we are happy to try to answer them.
Hello, this is Carmel. I have a question.
Yes.
Is this, are you able to rewatch this somewhere? Is there any written material on this that I can repeat and look at again?
Absolutely. So in a few days, we will send out the recording so that you can be able to rewatch it at your leisure. And then Tiffany also just dropped in the chat a link to the slides. And then Shakara, looks like you have a hand up.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so hold on. I was on the website for the connector, the workforce connector. So I put in the HPSA score, but it said something about STAR active, I think. It didn't say nurse corps active. Let me go back to it. Does it have to say that, or?
That's a great question. So I recommend not actually, if you're trying to broaden your search out the most with sites that are already in the connector, I would not search by Nurse Corps Active, because if it is a site that has site point of contacts listed, has that eligible HPSA score, we can activate it for Nurse Corps. We have other programs within HRSA, such as the National Health Service Corps, where a site might have signed up to be a National Health Service Corps site, and nobody has yet requested for it to be a Nurse Corps site. And so that's why it doesn't say Nurse Corps Active. But if it meets those 3 eligibility criteria, we are able to activate the site. So it's all about meeting those 3 pieces of criteria.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Montenreo.
Yes, hi. I was just following up. I had my name as Elizabeth earlier, but I know you took my name down. So will somebody be following up with me? I'm the one that didn't have the um inquiry showing up on my side.
Yes. So what is your, did you put your um, full name in the chat as it's found in my BHW? That would be the most helpful. And then we will jot down your name
Okay,
and follow up with you later.
awesome. I'll do that now. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Are there any last questions? Any sites anyone wants us to look up?
Yes, Grady Hospital, Atlanta, Georgia.
All
G
right.
R GRADY.
Yes. I can already tell you that's an eligible site because we have lots of people go there, but so will you we'll go ahead and go to, yeah, let's go to the connector. And I will find the zip code real quickly for that, Shivani. The zip code is 30303.
Do we have?
Sometimes, I think if you might have to refresh the screen. Sometimes it gets a little buggy because I don't think it took the location, Shivani, even though I know you put it in there. Um, all right, for distance, you might want to narrow the distance to whatever the smallest amount is. And then Grady G, it starts with a G. All right, so this is where you're starting to get into different ones.
Wow,
And I think it's probably the one that says Grady Memorial Hospital. So this is where it would be important to click into it and then look at the actual physical address right there in the top left. And I do believe that is the main campus of the hospital. So then we can scroll down and see that it has a bevy of site points of contact. And on your right, that it has a primary care HRSA score of 16. And because it's a hospital, we know that it's eligible site type. So it meets all three criteria.
Also, do you have one, um, I'm gonna just say like Memorial Hermann in Houston. That's the last two I want to look at. Memorial Hermann.
Okay, so will you look up the physical address for us for that one?
Okay.
And then we're gonna look on HipSafine for that. Johanna, you were asking in the chat, can we also use the HipSafine tool? Is there a specific site that you want us to look up in the HipSafine tool? And we can do both the hospital Carmiel was asking about, and then one you are interested in.
I don't have like a specific hospital, but I've looked up where it says data.hrsa.gov because when I use the health workforce connector, it's very limited on sites for the Los Angeles area. And then when I use the data HRSA.gov, there's clinics and different hospitals that actually come up. So is there a difference between using one website versus the other?
Great question. So the connector is going to pull up sites that we already have in our system. HRSA Find is going to look up the HRSA score for any physical address that you give us in the country. And so that will let you know if the site that you know might not yet be a site in our system, if it has an eligible HRSA score, that lets you know that it meets that piece of criteria. And there's 3 criteria: that it's an eligible site type, eligible HRSA score, and has a willing site point of contact. That it could potentially be added to the connector and you could work there. So if you are interested in a site that you find has an eligible HRSA score by looking it up in HRSA Find, but you can't find it in the connector, you want to make sure that you reach out to your employment support analyst at the time of interview for them to verify site eligibility. And if it's, again, someplace that's not in the connector, they'll tell you, okay, this site is eligible as long as you identify an eligible site point of contact.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Carmel, do you have that address for us of the hospital you were interested in Houston?
Yes, 23900 Katy Freeway.
Okay, let's actually, Shivani, let's do that in the HRSA Find site. So will you repeat it for us, please?
23900 Katy Freeway, KATYFWY. And I'm sorry, that's Katy, Texas, KATY.
All right, so this is a good example to see. Unfortunately, this hospital would not be eligible. While they do have a mental health HRSA score, it's not high enough. It's only a 12, and you would need, a HRSA score that's at least 14.
Okay. So I'm guessing the reason why I use that hospital as an example is because it's kind of in a area that's kind of, I want to say, more affluent. So I'm guessing that you guys are focused on areas where the population is a little less, maybe less fortunate as far as getting help with their aid and stuff with medical bills and stuff, from my understanding.
Yeah, the idea with the HRSA score is it's the higher the score, the greater the need in terms of needing healthcare professionals. So, we're wanting for nurse corps scholars to be working in underserved areas.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Okay, and then I see Han placed a question in the chat. In the last example for shortage area by address, the site had a mental health HRSA score of 15, but didn't qualify for primary care. Does the mental health HRSA eligibility allow me as a family nurse practitioner to work there and fulfill my service requirement under my FNP specialty? The answer is yes, it does. For everyone, no matter their specialty, for the Nurse Corps Scholarship Program, our current requirements are either a primary care or mental health score of 14 or higher, no matter your APRN specialty. On.
Yes, so I just want to follow up on that. So let's say, for example, we find a job that's eligible and we started working there. And during the time of our service and the HRSA scores dropped to below 14, are we supposed to change job site at the time, or no, we just stay at the site where we already started our obligations?
That's a great question. So, one of the reasons why we want for people to verify site eligibility at the time of interview is because HPSA scores do occasionally change. And so, when you verify that score at the time of interview, that locks in the score for 6 months. So you need to, start your job within that 6-month block in case, and we have seen this happen on occasion, in case the HPSA score drops below that eligible number of 14. With that said, once you start service, if the HPSA score drops below the eligible 14, we will not, make you have to quit your job. You will be allowed to continue and finish out your service at that site.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. If there are not any last questions, this concludes our presentation. If you have follow-up questions, please feel free to send a message via MyBHW. And our analysts look forward to supporting you in your transition to service, and we applaud your commitment to building healthier communities throughout our country. Thank you.